Now we're going to a very stimulating discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about aligning the board, management, and corporate transformation. We've talked about the major events that impact your strategy in 2017 and beyond. I know what you're thinking. You're afraid. But nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. I know this because it was authored by a great woman, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, who made great strides in radioactivity and radiation. She's Marie Curie. Like her, many women in history have defined the course of business. And ladies and gentlemen, for the next few minutes, we're going to tackle growth, inclusion, and women empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as I give to you my very amazing panel, Lucy Quist, Patience Achiano, Dr. Anna van der Poy, Mrs. Christiana Ekaite, Madame Abiola Bewa, and ladies and gentlemen, the moderator for this great panel, our very own former DMD of UT Bank, Madame Pearl Iswa Mensah. For all these great women, I think another round of applause is in order. And so, Madam Moderator and your amazing panelists, you have 35 minutes to do justice.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. According to PwC, globally, 82% of men are employed versus only 55% of women. In 2016, the incoming CEOs of multinational companies were 4.2% female, and it dropped to 4% in 2017. In 2016, female CEOs in the Fortune 500 also fell from 4.2% to 4%. Data on Africa and Ghana is very scanty. Many say that Ghana is different and Ghana is changing. We're seeing that top multinationals in Ghana are employing female leaders to grow their businesses in Ghana. We have top female executives heading institutions from telcos to financial institutions. Is this enough? Can we do more? What about board appointments? How many women do we have chairing boards in Ghana? Who is sponsoring or mentoring young professional women to take up the C-suite jobs in Ghana? How do we ensure that on a male-dominated board, women are heard and paid equally? Well, this morning, we are discussing these issues and many others with a very prominent team of female leaders who are boldly heading and leading multinational institutions in Ghana. I am Pearl Iswa Mensah, your moderator. I have the pleasure to introduce to you Lucy Quist, who is the CEO of Airtel Ghana, Patience Achiano, CEO of Barclays Ghana, Cassandra Mensah Abrampa, Lead Commercial Operations, Google Ghana, Mrs. Christina Akete Aloyi, CEO, Energy Bank. Okay, so I'd like to start with you, Lucy. Promoting equality. Now, with all the arguments making the case, the strong case that it is... Technology fails me. With arguments making a strong economic case for gender equality in institutions, why do we still have inequality in employment and opportunities in corporate Ghana?
Thanks, Pearl, and good morning, everyone. I guess from what you read out at the outset, Pearl, you made it very clear that some of these challenges in terms of the disparity, gender disparity in the workplace, is a global issue, which is also present in Ghana. And I think you'd find that in corporate Ghana, I think that we have a two-pronged two areas of opportunity. So we need a two-pronged approach, perhaps, to bring more women into the workplace. I think people talk a lot about our culture and our background that really emphasizes more men going out to, work and women being more homemakers. And I always tell people that, at least from what I learned from, evolution and biology, men used to be hunter-gatherers and women used to keep the home, right? And then the men evolved. They're not hunting and gathering any longer. I don't see any hunter-gatherers here. So why haven't we been allowed to evolve beyond what we were doing at the time? So we need a mindset change that says that even though, culturally there are roles in the workplace, the world has changed, and work isn't all about muscle and strength any longer. So, women should be included, and as business leaders, we need to make a conscious effort to deal with that cultural bias. But the other thing that's interesting, which I think is not spoken about a lot, is education, right? Education, by definition, at its inception, was designed for boys. Education actually a male thing. If you go, and I've done research on this, all the oldest schools in the world are boys' schools. Even if you look at, in our context of Ghana, all the mission schools were the earliest ones were for the boys, because the missionaries came and the schools they set up were targeting boys. The girls' schools that were born were sometimes an afterthought. Thank God that the afterthought actually happened for some of us to benefit. So we need to balance out addressing the workplace as business leaders and creating more balance consciously, but also through education, drive more girls to get the skills and training and qualifications that are needed to succeed in the workplace.
Thank you, Lucy. So we started off as homemakers. The world is changing. We also should be allowed to change. So, Patience.
Yes.
How do we bridge the gap in employment? Where do we start from? Lucy mentioned education. Where else do we go?
Okay. Thank you, Pearl. Hello. Okay. So just to say that it starts with me, everyone on this panel, and all of you in the room. In other words, leadership at all levels. Government, political, corporate, the private sector, everybody. So ask yourself, how are you creating the conducive environment that will enable women? Because, mind you, Lucy says that the traditional cultural perceptions or stereotypes of what women should be doing, that hasn't changed. And therefore, women in our part of the world actually have multiple responsibilities. How, and the workplace, let's all agree here, is designed for men to thrive. How do we, recognizing that women have multiple roles outside the organization, then factor that into our processes, our policies, our activities to enable talented, capable women to also progress in the corporate environment, but continue to do well at home? For me, it starts with me and you as well.
Lucy said we should go with education. Patience is saying it starts from you and I. So, Christina, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Are we making as much progress as we should? Are you and I doing what we need to do to get the women to be seated where you are today?
Thank you very much, Pearl. Good morning, everyone. That's a very interesting question, but the first thing I'd like to say is, yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I will use a particular example. My sons, I have two adult sons that in Canada, and one of them sent me an article recently about what was happening with PwC in Canada. And PwC Canada, not the CEO, but I think the head of the digital unit or so, since 2011, has set up they do this twice a year. They have a 6-month program, aimed at female executives in the organization. So they recognize female talents within the organization, and they select them out and take them through a 6-month training process. They teach them leadership skills, they teach them soft skills, they teach them networking skills, et cetera, all in a bid to retain the executive women within the organization. Now, if one organization has done that, I believe that signals that the rest of us should be doing that and even more. So I know that quite a few organizations have set up programs and structures within the organizations. I believe Barclays has one. I know Airtel possibly has one as well. And so the rest of us in this room, if we don't have such, then we should actually consciously make a determined effort to put in programs that will ensure that women get out of executive roles where they handle just HR and move into mainline functions within the organization. So that's one. I know South Africa has also introduced legislation, whereby, companies are encouraged, to put in quotas, to make sure that they have a certain number of or percentage of women within the executive workforce and also on the boards. I'm not saying that that is the end that's going to be the final solution. But what that does is that it creates awareness, particularly for corporate organizations, to then go out and do something about bringing in more female quotas for more women at executive level. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but are we doing enough? I don't believe so. There's a lot of talk about inclusion, about gender disparity, but we need to go beyond talking the talk. We need to walk the walk. And I think that's what this is all about today. How do we move beyond just saying things and actually putting in actions that will ensure that we have a larger number of women at the executive and at the board level?
Thank you very much, Christiana. Now, we keep talking about women, in executive positions, and then what value women bring to boards and businesses if they are at the top. Is it really true? I mean, why is gender equality at the C-suite level crucial to business success? I think Cassandra, I'd ask you to answer that.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Pearl, for the question. I think it's safe to say that I feel like the odd person out here. I am sitting here on behalf of Estella Kofi-Osoa, who sends her deepest apologies. She had to travel last minute and couldn't make it. And it's fitting that the title of this panel is Growth, Inclusion, and Women Empowerment, because this is definitely a growth opportunity for me. But just going back to the question, yeah. I had to step up into this. If there's anything to say about that, I think the testament to the importance of women on exec panels is a reflection of how opportunities like this are given to capable team members to step up into things like this. So I think it's fair to say that women bring diverse perspectives, and as Lucy rightly pointed out, throughout history, we've had to juggle various things and had to sort of excel in those positions. And so when we are made to sit on the boards and we are made to contribute equally as our men peers, we are able to bring perspectives that overall can lead to better financial results at the end of the year, can lead to creativity and innovation. And obviously, as was pointed out by our earlier speakers, there's a need to have that so that companies can remain relevant in the years to come. So from just a financial results perspective, from creativity and inclusion and all of that, that's the added value of having women on the board and having a seat at the table.
Thank you, Cassandra. Actually, PwC estimates that bridging the gap in employment, for instance, alone, will increase the global economy by $9 trillion. So that is the effect they are saying women will have on the global economy if they're given the chance.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry. I was just agreeing with Pearl that it stands to reason because you don't have to be very clever to you acknowledge that if you leave half the population behind, you can't be doing the best that you possibly could have been doing. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, please, go on.
Let me contribute. One of the crucial elements, we have the youth of today, we call them the millennials, and what they do when they are seeking employment with organizations, they actually question, what is the ratio of your female executives? What plans do you have for inclusion of women, in the workforce? What plans do you have to move women up? So if you're not addressing these issues now, you tend to lose out, on a flock of capable, talented young women that could have been part of your workforce from the beginning.
I think, Lucy, I'm just going to throw this question at you. How do you respond to the challenge that women do not put themselves up or sell themselves enough for C-suite roles within organizations? We talk about other people putting us up, but why don't we put ourselves up?
I think you're right that the proportion of women who put themselves up relative to the proportion of men is lower. So there's some women who put themselves up. I'm sure most of the women on this panel must have said, I'm here, as part of getting ahead, but not enough, right? But not enough women are actually doing this. Pearl, as we sit here, right, we're sitting in a room where we have men and women. We have more men than women because it's a business conversation, right? And somehow, invariably, if we cast our eyes around this room, we're going to assume and ascribe more seniority to the majority of the men than the women, right? And that's not just, I'm not talking about the men. Women will do the same, right? Women will do the same. I've been in places where people have assumed I'm the secretary because I'm the woman. So invariably, even women themselves sometimes feel that a woman doesn't look the part, isn't the part, right? And we have to create environments where both men and women can look beyond what they see, because ability isn't about your gender. Ability isn't about your appearance, right? It's about what's between your ears. It's about what you're able to do with it. It's about your determination. It's about so many other things. And in fact, what you look like is probably the least important thing. Yes, you have to look decent, but you know what I mean. So we need to create environments where women not only feel, but are encouraged to put that hand up. Because 9 times out of 10, a guy is more likely to put his hand up because he looks the part. He looks the part in our biased mind. Now, let's not forget that this panel, we're talking about growth and inclusion. Empowerment is part of it, but we want businesses to grow. We want inclusion to happen. So we need to move away from treating the conversation about equality and having diversity, particularly gender diversity in business, as a nice to have, or they're the women again talking about something else or other about themselves. No, it's about a business imperative to deliver. Right? In our industry, for instance, you have, and in all industries, customers are women too. And what you find is that in a lot of businesses that lack diversity, parts of the business performance is impacted by that lack of diversity because you're not producing products for half of your customers. So it's a business imperative. We need them to raise their hands up, and we need more women involved in those decision-making. That's those decisions being made, which is why we need them to go up the ladder.
Thank you. Okay, Patience, a lot has been said about soft skills, that women really don't have the soft skills that the men have. That is why we're not getting to the top. How important is this for leaders? How do we encourage women to develop and master these for effective leadership?
Actually, I think women have excellent soft skills. It's just that they are not using it as much as they could to get ahead in the work environment. So, for example, communication skills. Who here doesn't agree that women are better communicators than men? Is there, let me see by hand, is there anyone who disagrees with me? Women by nature are talkative. That's why even in the home, the likely person that a child will come to if they want to complain. My son always comes to me to mediate between him and, his dad because there's a disagreement. The likely person to talk to is the woman because we talk a lot. We open and we share. That is a strength that you can leverage in a corporate setting. We don't do that as much as we could. We are empathetic. We understand, other people's feelings. How do we use it in the work environment to get ahead? So confidence, inspiring confidence in others, and empowering others. We empower our children. I'm always saying to my son or to my daughter, you are sharp, you are imaginative, you are brilliant, to build confidence in them. How do we use it to empower our teams to help us achieve the ambition? So for us, it's not a lack of the skills, but using it effectively. And I think part of our roles as senior leaders is to encourage and strengthen our female colleagues to use their natural soft skills to their advantage.
Okay. All right, Christiana. So in a few words, how do we change the narrative? How do we encourage? What would you say to encourage more women to step forward?
One of the things that has held women back is, I tend to call it the fear factor. And the fear factor is because we, rather than consider ourselves first, we consider everybody else first, and we think about ourselves last. So a female executive, with an opportunity to rise up the ladder to the position of CEO, MD, or board level, is going to be thinking about, okay, what's my husband going to say? How's my family going to be affected? How is my ministry in church? I'm involved in ministry. How is that going to be impacted? And so rather than think of the positives, first of all, think of the negatives. And invariably, the negatives outweigh the positives. And so that then makes us take a negative decision. Okay, maybe not at this time. Let me wait till next year. Let me wait till the children are grown. Let me wait until my husband retires. Let me wait. And that let me wait invariably holds us back. And so how do we overcome and get to the next hurdle? The first question you asked, Lucy, is what are some of the issues that hold women back in the workplace? A work-life balance is one. She talked about bias, but we encounter bias at every level. So that's not even, that's there, but it's still there. So this work-life balance is critical for a lot of women. And I listened. Yes, it was patience. And she spoke about this recently. And I know when I listened to her, I went home and I sat down and did, for myself, I put down a lot of things, particularly what she spoke about using your will. And so for us, we need to be able to tap into our connections. We need to be able to rely on support. We need to be able to delegate effectively, which then frees us up to carry out our executive duties. So rather than think of how will my children be impacted, I now say, okay, what do I need to put in place for my children not to feel the absence of a mother, for my husband not to feel the absence of a wife? And then how do I ensure that I have enough time to meet my duties in the workplace and yet still have time for my family and other duties and also have me time as well? So there are a lot of things that women can use, but particularly a good support system, a good networking system. Put in, if you don't have a mentor, find a mentor. Look at other women who have made it, form those associations, talk with them, share with them, and then, get tips and guides on how to keep yourself on the same level. And then finally, learning and relearning. Don't stay at the same level. Don't be comfortable in a plateau. Seek learning and continue learning always.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. Now, that brings me very nicely to my next topic as to, do we really need groups for women? Do we have to actually go out of our way to help, to empower women and to mentor or sponsor young women to climb up the ladder? So I'll start with you, Lucy. Why do we need support groups for women? And how relevant are they to shaping and preparing female leaders in Ghana or in Africa?
Thanks. I think over time, people have always had support groups when it comes to particularly career development. I'm talking about support in the corporate context, which is why we have professional bodies that people join, associations, any area where people have felt that that people need support to make progress. A group has been formed over time. And I think an area that typically hasn't been looked at too strongly in the past in Ghana, at least in the last generation, was about women in the corporate environment. That's why I'm particularly proud. I mean, four out of 5 of us are part of this. I'm sure Cassandra will be joining soon. But forming the Executive Women Network, which obviously yourself and Patience were there right from the outset, is really about responding to that need. Because everything we're talking about here, whether it's education that's created a bias, whether it's a workplace that's biased, whether it's work-life balance, whatever it is, women need a support system that says, I will mentor you, I'll coach you, I will share stories with you. It is okay to be you. Here are some of the techniques that I've used to help me get ahead. That's what the Executive Women's Network, Women Network exists for, to help inspire and support and empower women in this journey, because like anything else in life, the support of people who have been through it helps you get ahead.
Thank you. So, yes, I was actually going to ask you that I think being the younger one amongst all of us, how do groups like the Executive Women Network and other support groups, what can they do to support younger women, particularly younger women, to be confident enough to climb up the C-suite?
Yeah. So I was going to add that, so I actually co-lead the Women at Google Ghana chapter with Estelle. And as part of the different initiatives we have, recently we had like a brag slam where the women in the office effectively bragged about themselves. And I think, you know, we've talked a lot about culture and its influence and impact on our lives. And I'm not stereotyping here, but as women and as Ghanaian women in particular, we are not necessarily put in positions where we sit up and just brag about ourselves. We're always thinking of others, as you pointed out. And so to be put in a position where you have to effectively self-promote is something that has a lot of benefits that can be underplayed. Along those same lines, I think for International Women's Day this year, we held a session with our partner companies on being bold for change, but the theme was I'm Remarkable. And again, it was around how do you effectively self-promote so that you can negotiate better and command higher salaries. And some of the statistics shared were around how, I think it's a Hewlett-Packard study that says, if a man has 60% of the skill sets required for a job posting that's out there, he's going to think he can do it. A woman wants to have 100% of the qualifications before she puts her foot forward. And so, from a mentoring perspective and from my fellow panelists, I think it helps when you have people who you think have been in your shoes before speak to you and say, you know what, step up to the challenge, you can do it. It also helps to let people know that you can't, I don't know, maybe you can have it all, but you don't necessarily need to have it all. You just need to find the balance and figure out what needs to drop at what stage and when to step up. And so I know, for example, that having a manager like Estelle, share her triumphs and tribulations along the journey has really helped. And so definitely being a part of a network like the Executive Women's Network will let women know that, it's not lonely at the top. We've been there, we've gone through these challenges, and you can also do it. So that's what I would say to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cassandra. That was very insightful. So I hope not just the women on the panel here, but all the women out there who are mentors or other younger women coming up the ladder took the points that you made. I'd like to ask you, Christina, so to make an impact, women must be influential. Okay. How do we empower women to be more influential and to become catalysts of economic development in Ghana and across Africa? You know, we're usually really shy about, making a statement and standing up to be counted. How do we do that?
Well, I think one of us mentioned it here, and that's patience. And that's that the change starts with you. It starts with a change of mindset for all women. And how do we achieve this? We don't wait until the girl has grown into a woman and in university before we begin to make her realize that she's worthy. Many times culture, religion tells us that we are the weaker sex, in quotes. It's true, yes, physically we may be the weaker sex, but mentally, as Lucy rightly said, it's between your ears that count. So right from childhood, women, the girl child needs to be developed. I know, I believe Lucy has done it. She's done a foray into secondary schools and middle schools in Ghana, where she's spoken to young ladies in school. I've also done the same thing in Nigeria, and we need to have more female executives and CEOs going out into schools, primary schools, middle schools, universities, educating women on what subjects to take. There was an article I read where, I can't remember what organization it is, but she's a CEO today, and her mentor told her that for her to get ahead, she needed to look at mathematics, engineering, or a science-related subject. So she took her mind off English, theater arts, communication, etc., because she knew what it is she wanted to do. So when we start at that level and begin to educate young women as to what it is feasible for them if they go particular routes, then they grow up wanting more for themselves. And that's the issue, wanting more for yourself. And once you know that I want more for myself, I just don't want to be a housewife. It's good to be a housewife, it's fantastic. But if you're career-minded and you know what it is you want, then you begin to prepare for it at an early level. And as you get into organizations, you look for policies, that will promote your movement. If there are none, agitate for it. Nothing stops you from putting your hand up every time and saying, oh, can we have this? Can we have this? Yes, you will get a lot of no's. But out of 10 no's or 100 no's, you may sometimes get a yes, and change comes. But it starts with you knowing that I'm not ordinary. I'm just as good, if not better, than the man who's sitting at the same table with me. I'm just as intelligent. I can actually achieve much more with the soft skills that I have compared to his. And so it's a mindset. So we start with the mindset, and once we can change the mindset, then the sky is the limit. So this issue about, oh, there's a glass ceiling, you can't break it. Patience said it, glass ceilings are made to be broken. So go ahead and break them.
Thank you. Pearl, I think I want to add a response. And to say that, you were talking about influence, how do we effectively influence? I think it's to add to what Christina said. Also, we need to demonstrate as women, when we're given the opportunity, that we are capable by delivering. Because for me, the shareholder just wants to maximize his returns. Yes. And for all other stakeholders, they are thinking of delivering of sustainable value. Mm-hmm. So when you're given a role, just deliver and meet shareholders' expectations. And once you do that, you have a voice. Your voice becomes stronger. And when you speak, people know you know what you're about, and they listen to you. And then secondly, we also need to be visible, and we shouldn't be inhibited. When sharing our ideas and our thoughts, we should be out there speaking on authority on issues that we have expertise and experience in. And when we do that, we will be heard and will be more influential.
Okay, thank you. Now, before we are shooed off the stage, I'd like to go quickly to the boardroom.
Yeah.
Okay, women you hear all sorts of things. Women don't like going to the boardroom. Women feel they don't belong in the boardroom. Men don't think women belong in the boardroom. And even though we're making inroads in women top executives in Ghana, we definitely do not have enough women on boards and definitely have very few women chairing boards. So Lucy, and this is a quick round because I think they want us off the stage, but Lucy, how do we get more women onto boards?
It's the recognition that we need a balance of skills on the board. I think yesterday,
Madam Moderator, God works in mysterious ways. You still have a little more time. I just want to there. I see that quite a number of delegates here want to also make contributions.
Okay, great.
Hold
Yes. Okay.
your closing remarks.
Okay.
Haven't I been gracious?
Okay, you've been
Round of
very
applause.
good, very good. Thank you very much.
you want me to finish? Okay, yesterday, I believe Edward Ifa made a brilliant presentation on corporate governance. I think hopefully some of you were here. And one of the points made was about boards, particularly in our context of Ghana, not having the right skills on the board. So you have people who are there because they know somebody who knows somebody, but they don't have the skills. If you recognize that you need a balanced board of skills, then we have to recognize that some of those skills, some of those experiences and competencies will be housed in a body that's called a woman. Just happens to be housed in that body. Get that balance on board. Make sure your business is run properly. It's to your advantage. It's not a favor. It's not a pain. It is not, do I have to really have her there? No, you need to have her there because she has another opinion and another perspective that will enrich your business and make you more profitable.
Okay, so I understand we have a few people here who would like to either make a comment or ask a question. There's a lady with her hand up at the back.
Mike.
Okay, sorry, I saw her. So do you...
Let me see your hand, please. Okay.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Janice Tego, Director of BJ Global Limited. It's been 60 years of women's movement from Women's Revolution till date, and we're not done. I think that the life of women will not change unless men go through their own revolution. Yes, I say this because of 2 points. There are certain permissions that men have not been given. Men don't go through paternity leave and may have to return to work 2 days after the baby is born because people might think they are less of a man and less of a high productivity guy and all sorts of myths around this. And so they need permission to ask whether they really want to be away from the baby and be at work just to prove that they are men. And then secondly, we can even bring this to the home economy. If we need to run a family because the life of an individual is determined by the quality of your relationship. If we need to be away as leaders, this takes a lot of time and effort away from home. What happens to the kids and the family? If work is supposed to be divided in the home, most of the time it's the men that are supposed to work. Is it going to continue to be divided by gender, or is it supposed to be divided by competence? If men have these permissions, we could be able to make some progress as women in society. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, shall we take 2 more?
Thank you. My name is Julieta Sante from the Black Star International Film Festival. There are 2 points I wanted to add. First of all, I'm a little disappointed that there's no man on the panel.
Yeah, I agree.
The reason is that we really cannot leave men out of this conversation. And we have to go along with the men. So it shouldn't be we against them situation. And I think we need to encourage more and appreciate the men that are really helping the women empowerment cause. Because there are a lot of men who support our cause. And by bringing them along, I think we do ourselves a lot of good. Thank you. The next thing I wanted to add is that it's great to have all the women support systems outside of the workplace, but women should learn to help themselves inside the workplace. And so if you're a woman executive, is there a woman that you have identified in your organization that you can help along? Because men do this. They mentor themselves. They help themselves. I mean, when you go to a lot of big organizations, Fortune 500, wherever you go, you see that a man will take another man and help him along the ladder. And I think that the saying that women, we are our own enemies, really comes to bear in the workplace. And that's something we need to talk about. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, there's a hand here. And it's particularly appropriate that we have a man here.
Okay, hello. I guess I can represent all the men in the house. No, I actually wanted to talk about women in the workplace, and I think that it has to be a deliberate effort by every organization to make sure that we create, to use the cliche, enabling environment for the women to be able to work properly. I have a friend who got pregnant, and she lives all the way at Community 25. She has to drive herself into town and back, and I could see the effort she was making and the pressure she was under, to be able to do all of that, deliver at work and deliver at home as well. Now, in Deloitte, we have what we call a program called Women in the Workplace, which also helps mentor women to leadership positions. But it also means that we need to create a situation in the office, to create a nursery in the office, potentially for women who have just given birth and still have to stay close to their kids, to create a situation where they can have flexi hours and work from home. At times when they cannot be able to make it, but also know that I can sleep a little longer, wait out the traffic, but also do a little bit of typing if I have to, and situations like that. I think that even as a nation, we should start thinking about it that way, because if we do it just on individual basis per an organization, organization by per organization, I think the women will leave the organizations that make things more difficult for them and go to where it will be easier for them to work. So we should also make it an agenda and continue to discuss on it. Thank you very much.
So, Madam, we shall take 3 more. We have a question here, and then 2, and then we're done.
Thank you. Mine is just basically a statement. My name is Fatima. I'm the CEO of African Brand Warrior. It's basically to salute you women, including all those men who tend to support us. Between yesterday and today, what I wanted to highlight was that with 5 of you sitting there, being CEOs of organizations, what came out from each one of your mouths was your children. And this is something that as CEOs, as men, we tend to hide that element. We try to make it all about money and about profit and about being successful and having the chip on the shoulder. But I wanted to highlight that element of what you did today, because we are driven by that. And by being driven by that, we're driving the future as well. Whatever we're doing today is about creating the future. And this is why I believe you have talked about education all the time. You educate a female child, you educate a nation. So you today are representing the nation, and you have proven that it's not about IQ anymore, it is about the EQ. The emotional quotient is very, very important. So fabulous, whatever you're doing.
After talking about the female child, what about the male child? Madam Moderator, I have another perspective for you.
Hi, my name is Ethel Mafo. I'm a proud male child activist. Yes. You all have children, and you have boys and you have girls. You are mothers. What do you tell your sons? If a woman will do very well in the corporate world or wherever, which I know in a few years' time, women are going to rule the world, but how are we preparing the boy child to complement that girl child we are tirelessly empowering today? If a woman will thrive in the corporate environment, it's got to do with the support system she has. If you don't have that supportive husband who is allowing you to go to wherever you're going, traveling everywhere, how are you going to survive? So I believe that it's about time we groom the boy child, we renew the mindset of our boy children to know that, hey, the woman is as equally good as you. You are the same, the woman is the same as the man. Mindset is the same, their intelligence is the same. It's just features that differentiate us. We need to groom the mindset of the boy child to support that girl child we are tirelessly empowering today. Thank you.
And what's the name of your organization?
Junior Shapers Africa. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. And if you're wondering why I've turned out so beautifully, it's because she's been behind me, my older sister. So another round of applause.
Aren't you lucky? My name is Kwame Jantua. I don't think it starts in the boardroom. It starts in the home, domestically. I have 5 sisters, the only boy in my family. How many men here will I say will cook for their wives? How many? I'm sure. You see? We don't know that. We don't know that. But if the CEOs of today are cooking for their wives, then women have support in what they do. Look, when you have boys and girls, the culture alone will stop you from trying to encourage your girl child. Because your mother will come, your grandmother will come, and she'll say to you, your wife isn't giving you a boy. Why? What is wrong with her? And it goes into your mindset. That mindset has to change. It only starts from the home, and it rises up into the boardroom. Without that, and without men realizing that whatever we do, we need women by our side, and we start respecting them, it's going to be very difficult. You'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women in the boardroom as compared to all these CEOs who are in the boardroom and are managing directors. Thank you.
And so, a last question, and then we'll call it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lakeisha Marie, CEO of Forward Communications. We're a communications consultancy here in Ghana. First of all, thank you so much for your comments. My quick question is there are mentoring channels that are in place that you spoke about, but I'm curious to know, how do you actually use this advice on yourself? What are the specific mechanisms that you have or that you implement to essentially self-develop? How do you aid yourself on this track of self-evolution?
Madam Moderator and your panelists, over to you.
Pearl, while your mic makes its way back to you, I'll just make a quick comment. I find it very interesting that whenever the conversation about women in the workplace comes up, first of all, it can become very emotive. And on the other hand, it becomes very quickly broader. You see how when we talk about women, we're willing to talk more broadly about society and children, but when it's men, it's very narrow. That should tell us something, that the role of women is significant. But it's not about men against women at all. In fact, the example that I gave as EWN, right from the outset, we involved men. And no, women aren't their own best enemy. I've said it repeatedly that I fundamentally disagree with that as a principle. You know, women have arguments, disagreements, and men do too. Why do we not brand men as being their own worst enemy, but we're willing to tag women? right? So we need to think, more broadly and openly about, is it a human factor where people disagree with each other sometimes, which is normal, or is it a woman factor? And just to wrap up, because I know you have many questions to address, Pearl, the fact is that what this demonstrates is that fundamentally our culture has an issue with diversity. It is not just about women, it is all forms of diversity, right? The majority of women sitting here who are doing well in big companies are not in Ghanaian companies. If we did the same exercise in Ghanaian companies, you'll find a tiny amount of women. The same thing goes for young people. I speak to a lot of young people, and they say that their innovations, their ideas are not heard because they're young. That's a diversity issue as well. So let's be open culturally to break the barriers that say who can do what. Let's open our eyes and our minds and our hearts to diversity overall.
Thank you so much for all the comments that we've heard out here. Quite a lot of the sentiments are well noted. And men, we didn't leave you out. This was just to bring some focus on how we can encourage diversity and inclusion. And since that scale is still tipped towards men, you will find that we'll continue to talk about women to try and bring women up to the point where we can talk about both men and women equally. But yes, there are so many men who are supporting this need for women to be in the C-suite and the boardrooms that we cannot leave them out. But before we leave the stage, I'd like to very quickly, less than a minute each, for all of you to give us your closing statements. Just very quickly.
My closing statement will focus on the question that the young lady asked. And what she said was, what mechanisms have I personally used, to be able to get me up the corporate ladder? One I've already talked about, using my network, and then using the people that surround me, both in and out of the organization. But more importantly, over the 30 years of my career, what I have actively sought is the positions that become available in the organization, and then seeking out and striving and persevering, for those positions, for positions that people don't ordinarily want, positions that seem too challenging. I go on and, I actively seek those out, ensure that I do them, and then, as Patience said, ensure that I deliver, that I succeed and deliver. That gets me attention, and that gets me focused. And a second thing I've learned to do is negotiate. I don't just accept what I move to an organization, they give you a pay packet, and if you're not very careful, what they're doing is giving you 20% or 25% less than what they would have given to a male counterpart. So you learn to negotiate every step of the way. You know what it is you're worth. So go for it. Don't let yourself be shortchanged.
Okay.
Patience.
Thank you. For so long, we've only paid lip service to the issue of diversity and inclusion. We need to understand that women deserve to lead. We are not doing women a favor when we include them. Women are talented and capable, and they can actually bring value to the organization when you include them in leadership. Till we begin to make the bold changes that are required to create the kind of environment that we need at every level, in every facet of our lives, we'll only continue to pay lip service to this very important issue.
Cassandra.
Okay. So I'll also end by addressing the question that was posed about what, what I've done as far as career development is concerned. So I think that one of the very first things I've done is I've always sought mentors, and mentors that can give me developmental feedback. I actually actively seek feedback on areas that I'd like to improve, and I don't necessarily like to hear the things that are just nice about me or things that are, in relation to how I balance aspects of my life. Sometimes I really want feedback on technical skills I want to improve upon. Secondly, I take risks. I'm constantly seeking growth. And I knew that about myself. So I also knew I wanted to get married. So when I sought a partner, I sought someone who would understand my ambitions and was supportive of those ambitions. And sometimes I know it's a struggle for him, but he knows who he married, and he's having to deal with it.
So he cooks for you sometimes.
So, so seek a true partner if it's the route that you want to go. I think thirdly, just sit at the table. If any of my coworkers are here, they'll tell you I ask 1,000,001 questions, and I have opinions about everything, but I always listen. So I would say that, even if you don't think you can do it, as I quoted with the statistic earlier, where you think you need to have everything lined up before you step up, sometimes jump into water before you learn how to swim, and you'll figure it out. So those are the things that have helped me, and hopefully they help some of you today as well.
Lucy.
So I think I'll also touch on that question of what I've actually done myself. People always say that if we want anything to change, it starts with us as individuals. If we want the boardroom to change, we want companies to change, it starts with us changing ourselves. And in addition to what everybody has said about what they've done personally, I think when we talk about diversity and you find yourself in a position where you're in the minority, in this case we're talking about women, but you can be a minority in any environment. You could be working in an environment where people from your part of the world are not there, and so on and so forth. You will come across a lot of detractors, and I have more than enough to spare. For everyone who cheers you on and says, well done, there are probably a few others who are busy saying, well, not as good as I thought it would be. You have to really determine and learn which voices you listen to. You can't listen to every single voice. There can be people who tell you things that are not great about you constructively, and those are good voices. But there are voices who tell you things about yourself purely to get you down. Don't let those register. Words matter, they count, but don't let them register. Focus on who really is there for you and believe in yourself to keep going.
Okay, so growth, inclusion, and women empowerment. We've heard so much today. I won't even try to summarize what we've done with all the things that we've said this morning. I'd like to leave you with a small statement made by Isabella Allende, who is a famous Chilean novelist. She said that if you empower a woman, the family, the children and the family are better off. If the family is prosperous, the village prospers. And if the village prospers, eventually the country also prospers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your audience.
And ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our amazing panelists and moderator. But let me take a picture with these young women, these young girls. I'll show it to my 2 daughters that they should grow up to be like them. Please, one big one. Sergeant Lee, please take a picture of us. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause as we celebrate these great women. A positive example to our young daughters, our wives, and we say we salute you. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. Now, last week I had the pleasure of hosting the African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, a conference to launch the operations in Ghana. And ladies and gentlemen, in the whole of Africa, do you know where the best brains for mathematics is located? Well, it's in South Sudan. Guess which gender is 70%? Ladies. You know why? In South Sudan, they say maths, engineering, the sciences is for the ladies. Literature, history, politics is for the men. And ladies and gentlemen, you should see the figures for what they have been able to produce. I believe that the greatest tool for any nation's development is the empowerment of its women. And so we here gathered as CEOs and great business leaders would make sure that we drive this agenda, won't we? All right. In a short while, we'll break for coffee, but before that, let me just read to you a few announcements. Fairmus Advisory Limited is a leading business consulting service provider in the field of market compliance, market research, and trade development. Fairmus was engaged by the Ghana CEO Summit to take feedback from UCU's exhibitors and sponsors to help inform future program outcomes. The team will be coming to you with their tablets for a short interview lasting no more than 5 minutes. I did mine a short while ago. The summit organizers will be glad if you could grant them audience to help make this summit better. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you would receive text messages notifying you to confirm your participation at this conference. Please do well to confirm so that we'll have a proper record of attendance. Last but not the least, Salad Master Micro Health Limited. They show you how to prevent and reverse lifestyle illnesses such as cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, among many others, through food and not medicines. They do that through the special cooking system, which cooks without oil, without water, and without fat, and helps to maximize up to 93% nutrients in the food. They seek to book an appointment with you by visiting your home to show you a detailed presentation. For more and further inquiries, visit them at their stand outside. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to introduce the CEO here to you, Madame Irene Boite. A round of applause for her. And so we'll go for coffee break just to digest all that we've had so far. It will last no more than 12 minutes, 57 seconds. When we do come back, you don't want to miss this very insightful presentation on Brexit, sustainable development. And ladies and gentlemen, brace up because the second part would even be more than the first part. Bon appetit. I'll see you shortly.